This is a low-key leg day designed to support your menstrual phase. In the Lunae Roadmap, we look at the menstrual phase as the first and last few days of each cycle. So it's the transition time between one cycle and the next, where we see a dramatic decline in hormones. So the way that you know that you're entering premenstrual territory is you might identify with lower energy levels. Maybe you're seeing some mood disruptions, even sleep disruptions, or you're starting to see those telltale signs of PMS. And then through your heaviest days of flow, so where you might experience a little bit of cramping, maybe you have low back pain or other symptoms that present during that pretty intense shift in hormones. So this is a time of inflammation in the body. It's the process that facilitates menstruation, and it's energetically demanding. So there's a lot that our body is doing even when we're not exercising. There's a lot more happening underneath the surface and a lot more energy that's being used to make that happen. So rather than competing for energy with those reproductive priorities, we are going to slow things down really to promote circulation and blood flow, to help kind of move things along, to help the onset of your period happen so things don't get stuck. It's the energetic stagnation or the blood stagnation that causes the discomfort. So we want to really help move things through, and we'll do that in a very gentle way in today's practice. This one you can do body weight only, or you can add some very light weights. We're using just a single dumbbell if you are choosing to use weights, and you want to drop it 50% from what you might be using in the follicular phase. So I just used a 15-pound dumbbell for today. That one felt just right. We only have 2 rounds of work for our exercises today. We're kind of decreasing the volume, but we do have 10 different exercises. So it's plenty of work. It should heat your body very gently, very slowly, and you should be able to stay around that 50% exertion mark. So 50% of your max, where you're sort of in warm-up mode the whole time. This one did get a little bit sweatier for me than I was anticipating. Part of that is because we are making that shift in performance as well. So we're still kind of holding over from the luteal phase, where we have to get hotter before we start to cool down. So don't sweat it if you are actually sweating today. That can be a good way to kind of clear stagnation as well. In today's workout, we're alternating between a single-sided exercise and a two-sided exercise. So using both legs together and then letting each side work independently. We'll have a little bit of balance, and it's a way to really help tap into the mind-muscle connection. So I really want you to feel how you're loading each pattern. I want you to slow things way down so that there's no urgency. You're really taking your time. You're not focusing on how many reps you can get. You really want to just drop into that moving meditation so this practice can serve you. You'll have your 5-minute warm-up at the beginning, your 5-minute cool down at the end. And with our 2 weighted rounds that come in right around 20 minutes, this practice is right around 30 minutes from start to finish. I'll include a workout preview in the description of this video below. That separate video will walk you through every single exercise with ways to modify or adapt for different needs. So I encourage you to watch that if you're a beginner, or if you're choosing to work without the video. Say you want to tune into your own music, or maybe you're taking this to a gym, maybe you're trying to stay quiet for family members who are sleeping. Whatever the case may be, you can use that preview to get everything you need for the workout, and then you can move in your own way. So now let's get to work. We are going to get the lower body warmed up and ready for our strength training practice. We're going to move through 10 different exercises. This is my all-time favorite warm-up. Really gets the legs warmed up and ready to go. So we're going to start with a squat to a hip circle. So you can bring your hand behind your head, squat down, and circle one leg, and then alternate. If it's too much to have the hands behind the head, you can always bring them to the chest or out to the sides. What I'm looking for here is just range of motion in the hips. So this doesn't have to be super fast or super deep to start. I want you just to kind of feel the knees, ankles, hips waking up. Make those big circles. You might even reverse the direction. Just one more here. And then we're going to turn into our prisoner side lunge. So feet are a little bit wider. This time I do want you to place your hands behind your head. The reason being, I want you to press your head into your hands to keep the chest lifted. So we want more of a squat movement pattern here, where you're sending the hips back, you're sitting into a chair, rather than hinging forward. There's a time and a place for that. We'll get there later in the warm-up, but for now, we're still in that squat pattern. From here, turn over your right leg. We're simply going to come into our split squat and then extend. So come down nice and slow, hover the knee, and then lift with the glutes. So the key here is keeping those hips square and even, not worrying too much about how high your leg is coming, but more how much you can get that glute to wake up. We're here for 5 more seconds. And then we'll step the feet together. Come into your hinge. So hip hinge, here it is. Come up and lift onto the toes, calf raise. If you want a little bit more, you can reach the arms out overhead and then come into that calf raise. As you do this, I want you to keep that low belly active. So we're toning the low belly by lifting the hip points up toward the low ribs, all while keeping the chest expansive, so nice and open. Then we're going to switch sides, so you'll take your right leg back, left leg forward, split squat position, extend that back leg. Come down and extend. So again here, I want you to take your hands to your hips just for a moment. Make sure that your back hip isn't popping open, but that you keep that nice square alignment here, and you're not leaning super far forward. We've got just that slight lean so that we can get that leg up. Now we'll step the feet together again, about hips width distance. We're simply coming into a deep squat and then folding forward. So we bend the knees and then straighten the legs any amount. They might not come all the way straight here in the warm-up, and that's okay. Just want to kind of wake up the backs of the legs. We're here about 10 more seconds. I want you to try to point the toes forward, even in that deep squat. Stretch the knees, wake that joint up, and then we're going to step the right foot back, open the left arm, twist, bring that left hand down and switch. So step the right foot forward, twist open, and then we step both feet back to switch. So nice deep spider lunge. I want you to come deep into that lunge, but without collapsing in the pelvis. So you've got some tone there, like you're hugging the feet energetically together, creating that magnetizing force. Come back to your launch position. Then we're going to come down into a tabletop, lower to your forearms, send your right foot up, extend the leg, and back down. So it's a donkey kick. I want you to keep the hips even and square and move through. So we lift, sole of the foot straight up, engage the glute, extend, find the hamstring, and back down. So the purpose of our warm-up here is just to prepare the legs for the work that is ahead. Let's switch sides. So donkey kick, extend the leg, and back. So in that extension, you're keeping the leg lifted at the highest elevation the whole time before you come back. So we lift. Here, I want you to fix the position of your lower back. So you're not letting the lower back compensate for the range of motion just to get that leg higher. We want the lower back to stay neutral. All the work is happening in the glute. From here, we're going to come into our bear position, hover the knees, and then just straighten the legs. Try not to move the arms, so keep your shoulders over the wrists. You're on your tippy toes, coming down just to hover, and then pressing up. This one does a couple of things. It helps us connect to the low belly, to those deeper layers of the core, and it activates the quads. So you're using the quadriceps to extend the legs. We're here for one more. And slowly come up, step your feet to your hands, bring your hands to your knees, straighten the spine, maybe shake out the hips side to side, and then nice and slowly we'll roll all the way up to standing. Take a huge breath in and a slow breath out. That is your lower body warm-up. Now you should be ready to get right into your strength training. We'll head into the workout next. Let's begin our lower body deload day. For today, you're reaching for a weight that is about 50% lighter than what you may have used in the first half of your cycle. So for many of these exercises with a single dumbbell, I would have reached for a 30-pound dumbbell. So today, I'm dropping down to 15 pounds. So you want something that's going to give you just a little bit of resistance without sending the intensity too high or causing you to overexert. You'll also need a chair for today's practice. For this one, you want it to be about knee height, maybe slightly above above or slightly below. With the lower elevation, so the shorter your chair is, the more challenging it will be. So just keep that in mind as you're choosing that surface. It doesn't need a whole lot of space, just needs to be able to support your seat as you drop down and back up. This one, we have just 2 rounds of work for today. We're decreasing the volume. We just want to keep our bodies, our muscles awake and online through this transition period in the menstrual phase. So we have 2 rounds of a giant circuit. We've got 10 exercises, so it'll be right around 20 minutes of the weighted work for today. So I will get our timer going. We'll have 20 seconds to set up for our first exercise, which is a simple goblet squat. So you'll grab your weight, come into position. You've got the weight vertical. I want you to tone the low belly by lifting hip points to low ribs. You want to keep your feet as narrow as is comfortable for you, even if it means you decrease the depth of your squat a little bit. You want to keep that chest upright, nice and tall through the spine. Let's begin in 2, 1. Here we go. Take it down and drive through the heels. So notice the pace here. We want to keep things slow and steady. Our focus in the menstrual phase is protecting the body, so not amplifying the inflammatory response that's already happening to facilitate menstruation. We don't want to add too much to that with our workout practice. So we slow things down. We're keeping the effort right around 50%. We're creating that mind-muscle connection, so tone the glutes at the top by hugging the legs into the midline. And rest. 20 seconds on the clock. Side lunge is next. We're doing one side at a time. So we're going to step out with one foot. Your weight is in the opposite hand. For this one, it is more like the squat movement pattern. So you are sitting back into that chair. We'll move in 3, 2, 1. So it's a generous step, but not too wide, out to the side and squeeze the legs together. I like to bring that opposite hand out to the side for balance and also to encourage that upright position in the chest. Take the hips back and squeeze the legs together. Trust in your feet here. They know that starting and ending point. And you want to make sure that as you step out, your knee is tracking in the same angle as your ankle and toes. So make sure that you're not collapsing the knee in or taking it too far out to the side. And rest. 20 seconds to rest. We'll switch to the other side for our side lunge. So starting position here, you'll switch the hand that has the weight. Shake it out, catch your breath. So again here, we shouldn't be in that really breathless zone. You might have slightly elevated heart rate, but nothing too intense. Here we go. Down and squeeze it up together. If the weight becomes too much, if you find that you can't stay right around that 50% effort, you can always drop the weight and work body weight only. Just focus on recruiting the muscles in the legs, really connecting to the movement pattern. That means you're paying attention to how you load your feet. You're paying attention to how you catch the weight and support that loading phase on the way down, and then how you activate the inner thighs on the way up. Last 2 and 1. Sumo deadlift is next. So for this one, feet are slightly wider than hips width. Toes are turned out, heels are turned in. It's not a huge stance. I want you to step in just a little bit so that you don't feel a stretch at the top of the movement across the pelvic floor. We're going to hinge at the hips, so you're bending your knees to track over the toes. Let's begin. So you bring heart, belly, chest to the thighs and squeeze the outer glutes, inner thighs at the top. So you find this mechanical hinge where you're taking out the curves of the spine, just maintaining that natural alignment and lowering the spine together, lifting it together. So it moves as a unit here. Back of the neck stays long. Your gaze is neutral, so try to avoid gazing up or back down. Breathe in and out. This should be a very lightweight for this movement pattern. So you really have to connect at the top and bottom to that deadlift pattern to be able to feel it working. Next up, we're coming into a reverse leaning lunge. So you'll have your weight in one hand. You're going to step back with that same side. And you're going to aim the head of the dumbbell to the center of your front foot. Let's begin now. So it's a leaning reverse lunge and step back together. Almost like a split squat at the bottom here, and we're leaning forward to prioritize that front glute. I want you to lift the front toes just a little bit so you know that you're connecting to all four corners of that front foot. And pay attention to the position of the pelvis and the shoulders, that you're not rotating as you step back. There is a time and a place to add rotation, but today we're keeping things nice and square. 2 and 1. We'll come up to the top. We'll just switch the weight from one hand to the other, and then we'll come to the second side. So again, you're stepping back with that same side as the weight, loading that front foot. You've got that slight lean forward, but again, not arching the back or rounding the back, keeping it nice and neutral. Here we go. Step it back and together. Down and up. You've got light weight in that back foot as it comes forward. We're focusing most of the work on that front glute. Again, watch for rotation in the spine. Make sure you're keeping things nice and even here. Tone the belly. So lift those hip points toward the low ribs to keep the lower spine neutral. Last 3, 2, and 1. So we're alternating here between single-sided movement and then both legs together. So now we're coming to our kneeling stand with the option for standing balance. So we're going to start in our kneeling position, and we'll step up to stand and bring your back leg to a balance. So here we're lifting the knee and then coming back down to that kneeling position, switching sides, lifting the other knee, back down. This one, take it super slow. You can even take out that balance if you want and just tap the toes. Otherwise, bringing that knee up, finding your balance, and then coming back down. Keep the elbows hugging in nice and close to the body. So we have that direct loading path over the center line of the body. This is one that you really have to slow it down. We don't want to feel the rush here. And rest. Shake it out. We're coming to our sit to stand next. So weight will be at the chest. I want you to kickstand one foot. Your working leg is the other foot. You want a 90-degree bend in that working leg. We're simply going to come up to stand and sit back down. Here we go. We lift it up and sit back down. So you've got that kickstand in the opposite foot, or if you want more challenge, you can lift that foot all the way off the mat. Trust yourself as you come back down into that seat, that you know it's there to catch you, and you're in control of that landing. So we're not crashing down. It's nice and easy. Same thing on the way up. We're not using momentum. We are using that strength and control in the legs to move us up and back down. Last 2 and 1. Rest here. We'll come into the other side next. So you can either kickstand that foot, lift it up, or the most challenging would be to try and keep that opposite leg straight. That'll be pretty demanding for the hip flexors, so you have the other options there as well. Let's come into position. 2 and 1. Lift it up. I always like to have the kickstand for the first 2 or 3 reps till I find the balance, and then start to lift that foot off the mat. So the tendency here is to want to sort of jerk your way up. So really thrust forward, but instead, can you slow that down, control it, feel the unfolding in the hips, and then the folding. So hip extension, hip flexion here. We're here for just 5 more seconds now, and then we'll complete our final exercise of this first round. Simple good morning hip hinge. So we will take the weight to the upper back, so the meaty part of your upper back, and we're simply folding the body in half. Feet are parallel, shoulder width apart, elbows, make sure they're wrapping in nice and tight. Here we go. Fold the body in half, spine is long, squeeze up to the top. Reach the crown of the head forward and then squeeze. So again, it's the hip flexion and extension, but now we are allowing the upper body to move. So the lower body stays fixed. We are hinging the upper body down and back up. This is a great opportunity to check in with your breath as we close out the first round. We'll have just 10 more minutes of work after this, about halfway through, and then it'll be time for your cool down. 2, and rest. So you can set that weight down for a moment, shake it out. We're coming to the top of round 2. So again, check in here with the intensity, with your breath. Make sure that it's staying low and slow. So we want it to be manageable for the second half. We're starting with that goblet squat. If it is too intense, you can always drop that weight. Come down and up. So I'll show this from the side too so that you can see the position of the spine. It doesn't really change as you come down. There will be a slight forward lean, but only because the hip position is changing. We want to keep that spine as upright as possible without relying on the mobility in the lower back to make it happen. Come down and squeeze the legs at the top. Last one, and rest. We're coming into our side lunge next. So for this second round, I'll try not to offer as many verbal cues so that you can start to really check in and connect more deeply. So you'll find more pause between the instruction here. Let's get ready. 2 and 1. So I really want you to be able to hear your breath rhythm, be able to listen for those signals from your body. You should be able to breathe in and out through the nose mostly. And it's a good way to gauge the intensity. So if you're really having to rely on breathing through the mouth, I want you to slow things down a little bit. Notice how you can move more efficiently so that it doesn't become quite as taxing. And rest. Come back to the second side now for our side lunge. Again, we're just doing 2 rounds, so this is our final set of work for our lower body circuit. We'll move in 5. Nice straight spine, and let's begin. Side lunge, squeeze the legs together. Find that breath rhythm. Breathe in as you come down, slow that loading phase, and exhale, squeeze the legs together. We're here for just about 10 more seconds. Last 2 and 1. Sumo deadlift is next. So again, step your feet slightly wider than hips width. Toes turn out, the heels are in. We want the knees tracking over the toes. You want to be able to see your big toe as you come into that bottom position, that deadlift position. So the knees tracking over second and third toes. Here we go. Hinge, heart, belly, chest to the thighs. Squeeze it up. So again here, I want you to really connect to the legs. As you come up, push the floor away. Squeeze the outer glutes and the inner thighs. Find that nice neutral spine here. As we connect more deeply to the breath in these sort of rhythmic pulsations here, it starts to feel like moving meditation, rest, where you can sort of get out of your mind and more into your body. That's what we're looking for in the menstrual phase, to stay connected. We've got our Reverse leaning lunge next. So I'm starting on the right side, stepping back with the right foot. Let's begin now. So it's a hinge and that split squat as we step back, lower down, and to stand. Make sure that your shoulders are nice and even. That's going to recruit a lot of core stabilization to keep the shoulders from rotating and to keep the pelvis nice and square. It doesn't have to be a huge step back. You can keep it nice and tight here. We got this. We're here for just about 5 more seconds. And switch sides. So you can change the weight. We'll step back with the left foot this time. So right from the beginning, make sure that your shoulders and hips are nice and level. They're in the same plane. We'll connect with the breath here. And we'll move into 1. So we lean slightly forward, bring that back knee to hover. So a lot of our movement patterns today are simply alternating between hip flexion. So we bring the body sort of folded in half, and hip extension, where we straighten the torso up. In this case, we're moving both upper and lower body. So we allow them to work together to create that hinged position. Last 3, 2, and 1. Shake it out. Kneeling to stand is next. So again, we will have that balance at the top. If that's too much, just keep the toes down, lightweight in that opposite foot. You're going to alternate sides with each rep. We'll come into position and begin. Down to kneeling, then step, standing balance. Make sure you give yourself enough time to arrive in that balanced position, that you're not rushing through it. So you find a little bit of a pause at the top. Really coil in through the low belly. Breathing here. Nice straight spine. Focus. Try to soften the muscles in your face so that you can rest in more of that relaxed mode and keep the nervous system kind of in this neutral place during the menstrual phase. So rather than hitting these big peaks with our workout, kind of just bring it up a little bit and then slowly guide it back down. Sit to stand is next. I'm going to start with my left foot down. Here we go. Stand up and sit back down. Again, here, you're not using momentum to lift up. You're just shifting the weight into that front foot and coming up. When you take the momentum out, you will feel it loading that working leg so much more. So don't sell yourself short. Stay in the work here. You might even hit that point, that transition point between flexion and extension, where you really have to drive that foot into the floor to make the movement happen. Rest. We'll switch sides now, so close to the end. Take a big breath, roll out the shoulders. We have just 2 more minutes of work left. Come into position for the second side now. Sit to stand. Bring that weight to the chest, and let's begin. So shift the weight forward and stand. Keep it slow and controlled. Stand it straight up and back down. You got this. Down and up. Notice if this feels different the second time around than it did the first time. Maybe it's a little more easy to connect to that front leg, to load the pattern a little bit more smoothly. We're here for 5. Find the balance. 2 and 1. Next up is your good morning hip hinge. This is the final movement pattern of our workout for today. So we'll come into position, bring that weight on the meaty part of your back so you're not putting the bar on the neck. You want to be able to stay nice and upright through the spine. Wrap your elbows in, feet are shoulder width apart. Here we go. Let's fold it halfway and back up. I want you to imagine stretching the crown of the head and the sitting bones in opposite directions as you fold. So you want to feel that nice, healthy stretch across the glutes, but not a pull. Notice if you start to feel strain in your lower back, it may be that your low belly has checked out. So just reconnect there at the top by lifting the pubic bone toward the navel, hip bones toward the low ribs, and keep that engagement as you then fold forward. Last 3, 2, and 1. Excellent, excellent job. Hopefully that one was just enough to circulate energy through your body, to increase your body temperature just enough where you feel that nice healthy glow from the inside out, but yet you still have energy left in reserve. I always like to say in the menstrual phase, a good gauge of whether the intensity was right is if you could complete that whole workout again, you have that much energy left, then you know you're about in the right spot. We don't want to take energy away from our other priorities at this time. So if you've got that level of energy at the end of the workout, you know you are in the sweet spot for the menstrual phase. So now that we've completed the work, it is time to cool down. Now that you have completed your lower body strength work, it is time to cool down. We're going to start with a simple air squat to a forward fold and rolling up. So you can take your hands behind your head. We're going to press the head into the hands, and it's a simple squat down. Release the hands, fold, straighten the legs any amount, and nice and easy roll up bone by bone. Hands behind the head, we squat down, fold, and roll it up. I want you to take your time with this, really slow it down so that you can feel a little bit of traction in the spine, sort of releasing all of the effort from your practice. Folding over the legs and rolling up. After this, we're going to come into our lunge. So right leg forward, left knee down. Reach the arms up and overhead. You can untuck your back toes. Right hand to the right hip, left arm up and over. So I want you to shift the weight a little bit forward until you feel a healthy stretch, but not a pull in the hip flexors. So just that nice length, really anchor the top of the back foot. And expand the side waist here. Slowly take the hands down to the inside. We're going to come into our wide forward bend and just flow side to side. So you can keep your hands on the mat. I want you to keep your head elevated just a little bit so that it's level with the heart and hips. We're just alternating sides here, feeling a little bit of a stretch across the inner thighs. In about 10 seconds, we're going to switch to our lunge on the left side. Coming into that side bend, hip flexor stretch once again. Make your way there. Left foot forward, arms reach up, left hand to hip, right arm up and over. And you have the option here to sink a little deeper into that lunge so that you feel that nice length in the hip flexor. We're here just a few more breaths. Soften the shoulders away from the ears. And even create a little bit of flow, shifting forward and back. And then we're going to take both knees back, come into a tabletop, reverse your grip. So the fingers are facing back toward the knees, and come into cat and cow. So shine the sitting bones back, inhale, lift the heart, and then exhale round, really press through the heels of the hands, chin to chest. So a key element of lower body cool downs includes releasing the forearms and the grip. No matter how heavy your weights are, it's good to always create more circulation around the wrists and arms here. And then we're coming into our zigzag shape. So one knee forward, both knees in the same direction. And then if your knees are facing to the left, you bring your left forearm down, right arm overhead. I want you to take your hand behind your head and arc away from the inner right knee. So knees are to the left. We've got this nice stretch across the quadricep and the hip flexor without having to come into full flexion of the knees. This is a great way to access the hip flexors. Come up through center, windshield wiper the legs. So now both knees are to the right. You're going to anchor the inner left knee, inner left heel, and come down onto your right forearm. Left hand behind the head, arc through the spine, up and away from that inner left knee. You might even tuck your tailbone ever so slightly so that you feel that sensation in the quadricep. These stretches, just 30 seconds apiece, might not be enough. Let's cross right leg, right ankle over left knee. Turn the heels of your hands in, press up through the heart, hug the shape of your legs into your chest. So if you're finding that 30 seconds isn't quite enough, you can always run through these stretches one more time or hit the pause button and stay in any one stretch as long as you need to. For now, for the timed workout, we will be here just another 5 seconds, and then we'll switch sides. Really lift up through the heart and exchange. So left ankle over right knee, you can kind of lean back to get into position and then work to straighten the spine. Definitely feeling the glute stretch here. See if you can soften the shoulders away from the ears. Resist the tendency to grip when the sensation gets pretty intense. Instead, where can you soften? Use the breath to relax. Be here one more breath, and then we'll slowly lower down, come into your straddle stretch. So feet are out wide, toes are turning up. I want you to engage the quads to press the backs of the knees down, and then any amount you fold forward. So you can walk your hands out in front of you. I want you to keep the toes facing up, keep pressing the backs of the knees down. Tilt the pelvis slightly forward, and then maybe press down with your hands. Drag them energetically back so you're softening that low belly toward the floor. Last big breath. I know it's not quite long enough. And slowly walk the hands back. Let's bring the feet in. Make your way into your ball pose squat, and then slowly through a forward fold. Let the head hang heavy for a moment. Maybe bring your hands to your knees, lengthen the spine, feel that ripple effect, and then slowly come up to stand. Let's enjoy a huge breath in together. Let it out with a sigh. That is your lower body cool down. Hopefully it was just enough to give your body a little bit of a stretch and bring your heart rate back down to the baseline. As I mentioned, you can always run through that 5-minute circuit one more time if you need a little bit more love for the lower body. But for now, I just want to thank you for joining me and for letting your body be moved.